DLTV News, DLTV News.
This is Sunny. Today I am here with a very special segment of DLTV News. Mrs. Kane and Miss Jane have made a new show that will hopefully make regular appearances on DLTV, so be sure to check out more of their new show, Porch Stories.
Oh, and welcome to Miss Jane
And Mrs. Kane.
and we're together again. Also, social distancing, so we are approximately 6 feet apart. But we wanted to share with you, first of all, that we love and miss each and every one of you, and that we hope each and every one of you is safe where you are and that you're having some joy in your life. And Miss Kane, we kind of decided we wanted to do this to sort of share with the kids, what's happening in the world. And I know some kids have been worried about their library books.
Yes, there have been students asking, what do I do with my library book, Miss Kane?
Yes. Well, what's your suggestion?
I would like for you to take your library book and put it in a very safe place. Because then when we come back,
Yes.
you return your library book, and then we'll have a special Reading is Fun distribution where you get to come through and choose a book of your very own.
Oh. Now, keeping it safe doesn't mean beside the bathtub, right?
No.
No, not at all. Now, I know sixth graders are worried, right, Miss Kane? Because you sixth graders, you're going to go on to middle school, and you'll still have a David Lubin library book. Should they be worried?
Not at all, because we're going to set up a special day for you.
Just for you. A special sixth grade day where you can come and return your library book, see Miss Kane, get your artwork, and see Miss Jane, which takes us back to, what about the rest of you and your artwork? They've asked me about that too, Miss Kane, and I said, don't worry. I've got your artwork nice and safe in the art room. So when you return to school, and if you were a kindergartner, you're going to be a first grader. If you're a third grader, hopefully you'll be a fourth grader, and I'll have all of your artwork safe. So when we start the school year, we'll start the school year with lots of great projects. But before we start the school year, Miss Kane, let's start off how we do in the library. And I know you do a beautiful welcome for us. So would you walk us through this?
So we're going to do our normal mindful breathing exercise. So guys, ready? Here we go.
I feel better already.
Perfect. Good job, everyone.
Thank you, Miss Kane. That's a beautiful little pillow, too, for that little bowl.
There you go.
So before we get started with Miss Jane and Miss Kane present, I'd like to tell you that our theme kind of for this art session has been surrealism, because I will tell you this is a surrealist time. And what surrealism means is realistic things put into a dreamlike or magical environment. For example, maybe a lobster as a telephone or a pipe floating in the air. Now, there's lots of different artists who are surrealists. Some of the most famous, and I've posted a few things about these artists, Salvador Dali, Rene Magritte, Oppenheim. So here's an example of a Salvador Dali painting. That's the one with those melted clocks. Definitely looks like something from a dream. And then we also have the fur cup. Now this was very controversial because people were like, but I couldn't eat with this, but it looks realistic, but it's covered with animal fur. But the artist we're going to talk about today, she did not view herself as a surrealist. Frida Kahlo. Now she said, I'm not painting a dream. This is my reality. And Mrs. Kane has a beautiful book she's going to read to us today to sort of introduce us to not only the art of Frida Kahlo, but the story of her life, which is very interesting and complex. And there's lots of other books that you can look up in the library or online to find out more about her. Now, Miss Kane, I took off the jacket to the book because I'm a little bit of a brat. But let's go through the parts of the book. What do we call this?
The front cover.
The front cover. And what is this?
The spine.
And what is this?
What do you think it is?
I think it's the back of the book.
It's the back.
Well, I'll let you take over, and then I'm going to add just a few little art details and commentaries on the side. But she's going to read this fantastic story for us, and I'll put this little jacket down here nice and safe.
Frida by Jonah Winter, illustrated by Anna Wan.
Oh, I like how that sun almost has a Frida face in it.
Frida enters the world.
She's a little baby right there. I wonder if she was born in the year of the dragon. That would be interesting to look up.
For little Frida, the world is Mexico. Her house is a blue house.
I think I might have a picture of that blue house, but you go ahead, Miss Kane.
It is in the town of Cobad. I said it right before.
I think I would say that Coanacan.
Coanacan? Coanacan.
Oh, we forgot to bring out a globe, but that's okay. We can do that later.
Frida's father is an artist and a photographer. He teaches her how to use a paintbrush. Frida's mother takes care of 6 daughters. Often she is tired.
I would be tired too.
Often Frida is lonely, even though she has sisters.
And her father was a photographer, and this is a painting that Frida did of her father.
Enter stage left. Frida's imaginary friend. Her name is also Frida.
Oh, I like that.
All of a sudden, Frida falls very ill. She's in bed for months. There's something wrong with one of her legs. Even her imaginary friend can't cheer her up. That's when Frida teaches herself how to draw. Drawing saves her from being sad.
Oh my goodness. So Frida had a disease called polio. And in those days, they did not have a vaccine for polio. And so when you got that illness, sometimes parts of your body would become crippled. So for her entire life, she had a very weak leg. It was very thin. It was hard for her to put a lot of pressure on. And she couldn't play in any sports anymore. And she used to love soccer.
After Frida gets well, she still wants to make art. So she paints little paintings. They are copies of other paintings.
And you know, that's one way we learn to paint, is a lot of times we'll go to a museum or a famous place and we'll paint from that picture. We'll look at it to study and learn.
Painting onto photographs is what Frida's father does for a living. He teaches her how to do this too.
In the olden days, photographs were black and white. Now, the world wasn't black and white, but the pictures were. So Frida and her father would take very delicate brushes and they would add color to those photographs to change them into color. Kind of like that scene in The Wizard of Oz where Dorothy Gale opens the door and everything is in color.
Frida also paints things she sees through a microscope. She loves looking at things very closely. At school, Frida studies science. She is bored. School is too easy. One day, Frida is riding the bus home from school.
And what I like in this picture is look at the volcano in the background. That illustration is what we call foreshadowing. It's kind of showing us that something scary or dangerous is getting ready to happen. I'm getting nervous, Miss Kane.
Oh, a horrible accident happens. A trolley runs into the bus. Frida almost dies.
It was a terrible accident. She's actually slung from the bus and severely injured.
In the hospital, it is painting that saves her once again. Painting is like her imaginary friend. It is there whenever she wants it. It keeps her company. It keeps her from giving up hope.
Oh, and you know, in these times, sometimes when we feel sad now, we might write a poem that expresses our sadness, or draw a picture, or sing a song. So art is a way to express feelings that we have deep inside that maybe are not easy to express any other way.
After the accident, life will never be the same for Frida. She will walk with a cane. When she is able to walk, her body will hurt always.
And look at this picture. The artist shows us Frida wrapped in thorns, but her face looks very serene or calm. So the thorns represent the pain, but her face shows us calmness through this pain. Because life has a lot of sadness, but it has a lot of beauty too.
You're absolutely right. But Frida doesn't cry or complain. Instead of crying, she paints pictures of herself crying.
There we go.
When she can't leave her bed, she paints in bed. When her whole torso is put in a cast, she paints on the cast.
And that cast is still available in the Frida Kahlo Museum. When you go there to the blue house, you can actually see some of the body cast that she decorated and painted, because she had to have so many different surgeries, so many different casts, that they kind of became an extension of who she was as a person.
Part of her.
Exactly.
Nothing can stop Frida from painting, because she's so often alone, unable to leave her house. She has to use her imagination.
There we go.
She paints what she sees in her heart, on top of what she sees with her eyes. It's almost like painting on photographs.
Like what her father taught her.
Mm-hmm.
And the little animals around here. Frida lived in a house with her husband Diego. They actually had a deer, they had chihuahuas, and she had a very tricky monkey named Fulang Chang. Oh my gosh, he was a naughty monkey.
Parrots too, huh?
Oh, parrots, absolutely, at the blue house.
She paints little magical scenes with words at the bottom. All over Mexico, people paint these kinds of scenes. Sometimes they are scenes of accidents with angels coming to the rescue. They are all like prayers for people who are sick. They are called exvotos.
That sounds good to me.
Frida paints exvotos of herself when she is sick or in pain.
Oh,
Frida imitates no one in her style. Her paintings are like nothing else. In museums, people still look at them and weep and sigh and smile. She turns her pain into something beautiful. It is like a miracle.
and those types of little paintings with words. This is a painting she did of she and Diego when they got married. And up here, there's a little dove flying with a little verse on it. Those are the types of paintings that she saw in churches and synagogues. Those are the ones that helped to inspire her to connect to her Mexican culture.
Viva Frida! Long live Frida!
That was beautiful. You did such a nice job with that.
Thank you, Miss Jane.
So I have several other books here before we wrap it up, because that's just one artist's interpretation of Frida's life. And it's a complex life, like your life and my life, and she kept journals and diaries. So one of the things you can do right now, that we're having this time of a lot of isolation and having to use your imagination, is maybe you want to start a diary or a journal. Write down things that you see.
And you can illustrate your diary.
You can. You can have doodles. That's the time we'll let you draw in your book. Now, I have a few little artifacts here I'm just going to show real briefly, and then we're going to sign off. But this is one of a collection that I have of items that are representational of Day of the Dead, and this is a Frida artist, and she's wearing a dress like Frida was known to wear, where she mixed styles and patterns. We know she's an artist because, well, Miss Kane, you can see, she has a paintbrush and a palette right there. Now, this is a beautiful example of some of the traditional animal sculptures that they would paint in Mexico with the bright colors of the flowers, and look at the details and patterns. This is a beautiful example of realism and imagination in one. And then, of course, I have my little mini Frida right here. And once again, you can tell she's an artist as well. I also am wearing my Frida and Diego earrings, and I have another little stack of books here that I'm just going to show you briefly. Now, Miss Kane and I would like you to know we think about you often, you're in our hearts, and everything is going to work out just fine. This is a book about Frida's life that has a lot more facts and information. I'm going to hand it to the librarian. She'll organize those lovely. This is a book about Frida, and this one kind of has some little cartoon illustrations in it of how this artist wanted to show Frida. Now, I love this book. because it is inspired by Frida, and it goes through the colors, but it has it in both English and Spanish. So I really like this for art. And then my last book that I opened the entire program with is a book on surrealism. I'll be posting projects online on my Facebook page of surrealist projects, and we'll definitely have to add a few Frida pictures in there. Well, Miss Kane, I say we toast to Viva la Frida.
Viva la Frida!
Viva la Frida!